everybody, it's Anna. Today I'm going to talk about Guardians of the Galaxy. Not Volume 1 or Volume 2, but Volume 1 and 2. Okay, so the reason I wanted to talk about the two of them together is because I love them. And I never did a video for the first one. So I want to talk about both of them, but I want to talk about them together. So let's compare and contrast, shall we? So Guardians 1, when it was first announced, was basically like a, F you, we're Marvel, we're going to release whatever we feel like it. They took a really obscure comic book from the 70s. Okay, the number of people I knew who the Guardians of the Galaxy were prior to the film was very slim. Now, obviously, people since have been like, oh yeah, I remember what you didn't read the comic books. Okay, you're faking it. Because it's cool now. Okay? And it is. The Guardians are cool now. But when they first announced it, and they're like, hey, we're going to have a talking tree. And a talking raccoon. Yeah. It was like, what's going on here? Because everything else had been kind of rooted on Earth prior to this. We were getting Captain America, Iron Man. Thor was really the only exception to that. And even still, it was still more humanoid in the sense that, Thor came from Asgard, where everybody's a human. Not a lot of alien species you get, except for the frost giants, obviously. But you weren't really getting a lot of the bigger universe. Okay, Thor kind of explains it in his Thor way, but you don't get to see it. Guardians is the first time we really get to see this additional universe that exists. Now, obviously, when you're dealing with the Chitauri and stuff like that, you get them, but you're not dealing with other just straight up species. The way you do with the Nova Corps, and the Ravagers, what you see in Guardians 1. So this was very different. And I like the fact that they said, this is very different. Let's give it to a director who's going to make it feel very different too. This had such a new feel in comparison to, Captain America's, I'm going to quote Superman here, truth, justice, the American way attitude, your Iron Man who's a drunk that we never address, and even Thor. Kind of gives you more of an earthy feel, despite the fact that he's from Asgard. So, giving us a straight up talking raccoon and a tree that can say 3 words was a real change. It also gave us more of an introduction to Thanos, who we got kind of a glimpse of at the end of Avengers. And if you're not a big comic book fan, you have no real basis for knowing who Thanos is. So, this is getting our chance to meet Thanos. So the first one, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1, was more fun. It was more getting to know the characters at their very basics, them kind of coming together as a team and dealing with a issue. Okay, the issue being our friend Ronan. So it's very straight-lined, in my opinion. Okay, so we got kind of the basics and we got to know our characters. Then Volume 2 came out. And I think this was the real opportunity Gunn took to really explain these characters to us. Prime example is this. We get to meet Gamora and we get to meet Nebula in Guardians. And you know that they're sisters and they hate each other, basically. They fight all the time. Okay, well, that seems pretty base for siblings. Okay, so learning in Guardians Volume 2 that Nebula's hatred for Gamora stems from her father punishing her when she couldn't defeat Gamora, when deep down Nebula would just have prayed that Gamora would have just backed off so that maybe she wouldn't suffer another day. Getting that deeper motivation for Nebula's hatred, other than being we're just sisters, and learning that even though she has this deep down just rage, she at her core loves Gamora, and Gamora really does love her, and they really are sisters who care for one another. They just have so much anger and hate built up from the abuse they received from Thanos. They take it out on each other. And so learning that about them and getting that in Volume 2, I feel like gave those two characters more dimension than they had in the original film. where it was just, sisterly hatred. And that was it. So I think that giving them that and building that was great. I think Michael Rooker's character, Yondu, really gets his due in volume 2, because there's hints of who he is in the first one. Everyone's like, there's no hint to him having so much care and compassion for Peter in the first one. Yes, there is. If you really watch it, I mean, really watch volume 1, you see that he cares about Peter. That's why he constantly lets him get away with what he's getting away with. Yondu could have killed Peter a billion times, but he doesn't do it. And it's almost like he knew at the end when he gets that orb that the stone's not in it. He knows it's not there. And so that, to me, is just great. I mean, it's great storytelling to see that carry over and to really learn how much Peter matters to Yondu, that he's willing to sacrifice himself to save Peter. And I think that builds another dimension to Peter's yearning for a family, that he had a family all along. He didn't have to try to search for one. He had a family in Yondu as a father figure for him, but then also learning to love himself, love others, the way that Yondu shows his love to Peter. So I think Peter grows exponentially in volume 2, as does Rocket, in recognizing that he really does have friends, and it's not just about whoever's most convenient for him to work with at the time. Drax, we learn a little bit more about his backstory and his love for his family, which we get in the first movie, but not as emotionally. We get you killed my family, I'm going to kill you bit, not these are experiences I had with my family that really bring up the tears. Really do. And then, of course, Groot's great in volume 1, but Groot is the thing in volume 2. I don't know anybody who didn't see that movie and wasn't like, oh, baby Groot, I want one. Okay, that character just draws you in, and you just want to take care of him the way the characters do. And they really do. They treat him like he's their child, and it's just the sweetest teamwork / family. And I think one of the lines in volume 2 that really will hit you, and I really think sums up what Gunn has built here, is when Nebula says, you guys aren't friends, you're fighting all the time, you hate each other, and all you do is fight. And Drax says, you're right, we're not friends, we're family. And that their relationship has now gone deeper from the surface of we're working best together, let's keep doing this, to we matter to one another, and what we do matters to one another. And I think that that's brilliant, and I think Gunn's a genius, and I'm a big fan of his anyway. But I think what he's done here between Guardians Volume 1 into Guardians Volume 2 tells one of the best stories I've seen, minus Winter Soldier. I think that's pretty awesome on the Captain America side, but we're going to stick with Guardians right now. I think it's one of the best overarching stories in Marvel right now in terms of the films, and I think that should continue. Please, dear Lord, help that continue. Even if we don't get another Guardians film, with them being in Infinity War, I'm curious to see how their family dynamic versus teamwork dynamic feeds into the more teamwork side of things that you see with Captain America and Iron Man and all that. You can tell that they respect one another and that they'll work together. Even at the end of Civil War, you see that. But you don't get the family vibe that you get from the Guardians. So to see how that's going to all play into Thanos' quest to take over the world, I think it's going to be really interesting. And I think it's going to be really worth watching. And I hope the Russo brothers are listening to Gunn, and Gunn can protect his Guardians. And they get their due justice in Infinity War. So that being said, I don't know that you could pick one over the other. I know there was some hate that came out of Volume 2 that it wasn't as amazing as Volume 1, but it's very difficult on the second go around to capture the initial joy that you got from the first one. I think it did personally a lot more than some of the other second films in Marvel series have done. For example, Iron Man. Iron Man 2 really was just a vehicle to introduce Black Widow. I don't think it's that amazing of a film. Thor 2, I got emotional, mostly due to, spoiler alert, his mom's death. But other than that, it didn't blow me away by any means. The only one that really did that was, in fact, Winter Soldier. And that is mostly because, and I know some people are going to hate me for this statement, but I didn't like Captain America, the First Avenger. I thought it was it didn't connect with me the way Winter Soldier did. But again, that seems a progression with the character, and I think Cap's going to continue to be a better character as long as Evans agrees to keep playing him. But the Guardians are a totally different story. It's such a different feel. And I think that you have to realize that that was probably done on purpose. But I could ramble all day about how much I love Guardians 1 and Guardians 2. But I think that this is something that's going to continue to fuel, hopefully, the Marvel Universe. And we will see, hopefully, them take on a big role in Infinity War. So, that being said, Guardians 1 and Guardians 2, I'm doing both. They're both getting it. They're both getting a 5 out of 5 on my glasses of wine. They are truly amazing films, and I applaud Gunn. St. Louis boy, love it. St. Louis kids forever. For bringing us these obscure characters in such a way that has made them part of our lives, and I love it. Thank you. Keep making more movies. So that being said, you guys have a great week. I'll see you next time.